Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. One of our panelists is imminent, so we'll just give a bit of a pause. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are just going to begin. We've got one panelist who I know is going to arrive in just moments, but I think we want to get started because, as I know, everyone here has got events following, and it's been a very long day. So let me welcome all of you to the people from all three conventions, the UNFCCC, the UNCCD, and the CBD, as well as staff from the GEF and the generous financial support of the GEF, and also the European Commission. The Rio Convention's Pavilion has been active since 2010, and it's a platform where we showcase the benefits and opportunities of synergistic implementation of the conventions to combat desertification, climate change, and to combat biodiversity loss. The Pavilion is a chance over these next days to show thematic discussions that'll look at the way that implementing these three conventions can help and we'll also hear from the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Environment Facility. So you'll see more of me over the next few days, but for tonight, our moderator is going to be Gabrielle Lipton, who did an amazing job in Glasgow at COP26, moderating other panels, and she's with the Global Landscapes Forum. But Gabrielle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the high-level opening ceremony of the Rio Convention's Pavilion here at COP15 in Abidjan. As you mentioned, my name is Gabrielle Lipton, and I'm with the Global Landscapes Forum, and it is my honor to be here with you tonight, opening this panel entitled The Rio Convention's Restoring Balance Between People and Nature. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the Rio Earth Summit, and in that time, we humans have put the Earth on track for 3.2 degrees Celsius of warming and also the extinction of 1 million forms of life. But also in these 3 decades, we've seen the rise of the 3 Rio conventions, UNCCD, UNCBD, and UNFCCC, who have shown commitment to fight the trajectories until we see change. I'll also say a provocative truth, if I may, which is that many people might not know much about the conventions and their relations to one another, but we are here this evening because we know that it's been proven that land degradation, biodiversity loss, and climate change cannot be fought one by one. They're not a game that any single institution can win on its own. These challenges are deeply intertwined, and they must be fought by joining forces and uniting allies in this space using all of the knowledge, policy, finance, willpower, and partnership that we have. As we've heard already at this COP, and in the magnificent stories told in the Global Land Outlook 2 report released by UNCCD in advance, the strategy of the 3 Rio mandates can lead to success. They can lead to the achievements of the themes of this COP and of this panel, which is restoring the balance of nature and preserving the legacy of land for generations to come. And also, as data shows, a little bit of money invested in this field can really go a long way, although of course we hope that a lot of money is invested in this field. So we're so lucky to be here in this institutional pavilion tonight with representatives from some of the conventions. Unfortunately, the colleagues from CCC had to leave already, but we do have a representative from UNDP, as well as delegates from key countries and the Multilateral Trust Fund, the GEF. So welcome everyone, welcome distinguished speakers. We'll get started. So I'm going to ask one simple question that I would like each of you to answer in a 3-minute elevator pitch, if you can. I know it's hard to keep it short, but if you can, that would be great. And it's a simple question, which is, we're here at the COP15 in Abidjan, and it's about land, life, and legacy. So again, how are we going to pass down healthy land to future generations? With that in mind, what is your convention, your country, your institution doing? What are you bringing to the table at this COP and generally? And we will start with you, Ms. Elizabeth Rama, Executive Secretary of the Uncbd. Thank you.
Good evening, all. And indeed, it's a pleasure to see you all joining us this evening. As the moderator has indicated, indeed, the 3 Rio conventions are inseparable. We cannot deal with one without the other. And they actually enable us to move from looking at conventions in a silo, but rather in an integrated fashion, because each complement the other. And we are here, COP15 in Abidjan, which is about land, life, and legacy. But actually what we here we are talking about is what is happening here at COP15 is a time when the world is also negotiating important decisions for the achievement of the objectives of the Paris Agreement under climate change, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework under the CBD, the land degradation neutrality, all of these to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. So without the Rio Conventions, the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals will be adversely impacted upon. We are on this journey together, all the 3 of us. The journey that calls for collaboration and cooperation at all levels, and for collective vision across whole of government and whole of society. A journey to trigger actions and transformation for the benefit of the planet that sustains us. So here at COP15 in Abidjan, CBD will continue its work that supports land, life, and legacy, because all these 3 terminologies directly also apply for the CBD work. Let's look at land, for instance. For us, we will continue to promote the adoption of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework expected later this year, because under this framework, it already contains draft targets that will directly address the question of land degradation neutrality and also ecosystem restoration in a manner that will be supportive to the work of the UNCCD. Second word, use life. Life is at the heart of all the work we do under the Convention on Biological Diversity, because our work seeks to protect the variety of life on this planet in a way that enriches and protects life of people and our planet. So the framework has one of its goals, not targets, goals, meeting people's needs, which is keenly actually supporting life. And if when we remember life, it is the water we drink, the food we eat, the air we breathe, all of this, if they miss, then there is no life. And finally, the theme speaks of legacy. The work we do go even beyond the post-2020 global biodiversity framework being currently negotiated, because it's about leaving a legacy of the healthy planet and future of life in harmony with nature as a legacy of our choices and a gift to our children. So if we have to achieve the CBD, living in harmony with nature in the long term, that's the legacy we leave to our children. And as far as we can bring, I think all the three conventions have already brought about a tremendous amount. Governments and stakeholders looking at the goals of these conventions to determine their, oh my God, to determine their ambition and course of action at all levels to restore land that sustains us, halt the loss of biodiversity, and mitigate and adapt to climate change. So these three instruments indeed provide all the necessary guidance needed to address the planetary crises for the decade ahead, beyond borders and at all levels. And the importance of cooperation and synergies among the Rio conventions cannot be exaggerated. We can even argue that ensuring equitable and sustainable benefits of all people can only happen or achieve if the three conventions are implemented jointly, coherently, and in a complementary manner, both at global level as well as national level. To conclude, human well-being and well-being of our planet depend on the fragile balance between land, ecosystem, and climate. And cooperation is the only way to maintain that balance and towards a sustainable future for all generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Secretary. Sorry. Such important points made about how the decisions being made here here at the COP15 are going to tie into decisions being made at the CBD, at the UNFCCC later this year. But also these high-level decisions, I love how you linked that back down to the basic needs of people: water, food, clean air. So these decisions really do affect everything and everyone. So we'll now move to Mr. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, the CEO and Chairperson of the Global Environment Facility, which has mobilized already more than 140 billion for Rio Convention efforts and environmental efforts. So please tell us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you asked, what does the GEF brings to the table? Most probably people will say money, financial resources, but that's not the right answer. The GEF brings new approaches, new ideas, new ways by which we can work with the agencies and with the countries in having higher impact with limited resources. We are not the owners of the monies. We are managers of taxpayers' money that comes from the north and goes to the south in the aspiration of supporting all developing countries in the implementation of all conventions. So what we are providing and bringing to the table is innovative ways to have a higher return with limited resources. And yes, we recently finished our replenishment. It was a very successful process. We've been able to increase the trust funding 30%. But that is because there is a clear understanding of donors and recipient countries within the GEF partnership that we need to address issues that are directly linked to the fact that we work and assign resources based on sectors, conventions, or incentives. And here's what the most important. Let me try this way. Thanks. One of the most relevant elements that we are bringing to the table is the effort of working in a more integrated manner. You know, a few years ago, we were not able to design projects that aim throughout the whole set of different conventions. We had to design project for the climate conventions, project for the CBD, or the UNCCD. And now, because of this integrated approach and more flexibility for countries, we will be in a position to really have higher impact. But also we need to understand a couple of elements which are key, and it is in the center of the Jeff 8 political negotiations. One is there won't be, if we continue polluting the environment, putting emissions up there, carbon emissions up there and destroying nature, there won't be enough money in the planet to revert the process. So we need to understand that a combination of elements are key in our effort to achieve progress on all conventions and yes, of course, the SDGs. One is we need to stop the investment that contributes in the loss of nature, in polluting the environment, and in contributing in climate change. We invest tens of thousands of more resources in economic activity that contribute to climate change and biodiversity loss than what we invest in reverting those processes. Policy coherence should be a core element in everything that we do, and this is something that the JEF aims to do. Policy coherence is this very simple process of generating mutual reinforcement within development policies and within sectors. It is not easy, it will take us a time, but those countries who has been able to generate national planning processes and budget alignments are the ones who has done more progress in terms of their commitment to the different conventions. And the other, and second, not less important element, is that the JEF resources should be a catalyzer for improved efficiencies in the management of domestic resources. There won't be enough resources coming from the north to the south to fully narrow down the global financial gap. It can be the climate financial gap, it can be the biodiversity, but if we work around mobilizing more effectively efforts around all financial sources, we can do, in a matter of 10 years, a lot of progress. And here's where the JEF looks to work closely with many countries in narrowing the domestic financial gap, and this can be done by doing multiple strategic investment with a vision, with a long-term vision. Whatever we've been able to propose in JEF 8 is because we got our eyes in JEF 9, beyond 2026. So here we are not just bringing more money, we bring better things into the table, into this partnership, which is the ideas, the approaches, particularly the integrated approaches is something that the JEF will be promoting, being able to design projects at the country level that address multiple conventions, multiple global targets, are ways that we strongly believe will help accelerate different actions within all different conventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to hear that this integrated approach to how finance is allocated, how it's spent, is being viewed as an innovation in itself, and that is attracting such replenishments. This one is more than $5 billion US, and we do hope that the next one is more. Congratulations on that. Much, much more, indeed. So we will now move to our representative from the United Nations Development Program, Ms. Usha Rao Monari, who's an associate administrator at UNDP. And would you like to try this mic?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. It's a real privilege to be here, to be invited to join this very important panel. I'm the Associate Administrator of the UNDP, and the UNDP is the UN's leading development agency. And in this regard, we work with 170 countries to look and deal with poverty and inequality. Needless to say, sustainable development and the SDGs and achievement thereof are central to this effort. In the Rio context, and others have spoken about this, it means supporting countries to turn pledges and commitments and monies into joined up action on the ground. And we do so with many partners, including JEF, including UNCCD, GCF, etc., many, many partners in order to be able to achieve this. I would like to confirm what the CEO of Jeff said, that it's not just money that you give us. You give us inspiration, you give us ideas, and you give us ways of looking at things differently, which is all important to the future of all of these issues. We believe that repairing the balance between people and nature starts with the land and the oceans. Just some statistics before I tell you, as per your question, what is it that we focus on? In just about a decade, we've supported governments in replanting 213,000 hectares of mangrove and forest, while protecting over 2 million hectares of land, 16,000 kilometers of vulnerable coastline, and 145,000 hectares of marine habitats. This is all I'm going to read out. The rest I'm going to go off script. We're helping, how do we do this? We help unlock finance with extremely important partners like the Jeff to protect and restore our natural world, really, through various initiatives, Biodiversity Finance Initiative, where we are working on instruments such as debt for nature swaps or green and blue bonds. We are linking it at the country level in two ways. One, in working with countries in enhancing and implementing the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, through what we call the UNDP Climate Promise. Essentially, we work with governments in putting in place the NDCs and in enhancing them as necessary. We then connect them to what we call the integrated national financing frameworks, which are basically the ways that countries look at financing their NDC, which really, when you look at it, is the investment prospectus when it comes to a country's promise to the planet. The integrated national financing frameworks are in place in over 70 countries, and basically we try to align development finance with other types of finance, private sector finance, any other types of financial sources. Energy is another key area where we are very active. Through our Sustainable Energy Hub, UNDP has made a bold pledge to work with our partners to support 500 million people to gain access to clean energy by 2024. It's bold because it's bold. There's a lot that has to go into that, but we stand behind our pledge in this regard. And finally, building on our NDC work and guided by the land degradation neutrality targets of this convention, we are starting a very new piece of work, initially in 30 countries, on an ecosystem restoration promise, just like the climate promise. Through this initiative, we will seek to support countries in fully unpacking their neutrality targets, which were a very important subject over the last couple of days, including to complement and align with NDCs and post-2020 biodiversity targets. This is the way we bring together the three conventions, the work under the three conventions, the ideas and the approaches at the country level. During this COP15, we look forward to listening to all our parties and partners on their challenges in setting and implementing their targets so that we can better tailor our own support. In closing, we look forward to working with and participating in the Rio Convention's Pavilion program over the next several days, and to our continued close collaboration with the many partners I have on this table and in the audience. I thank you.
Thank you so much. So many incredible initiatives ranging on everything from debt for nature swaps to energy transformation to being bold about restoration promises. So this concludes the beginning of our panel. We've heard from UN institutions as well as the Global Environment Facility about what's happening at that level and how conventions and how financiers are coming together and interweaving themselves to make change happen. But we're now going to move to the country level to hear about what our representatives are experiencing and the change they're incurring in their own countries. So we'll begin with Dr. Julian Wright, who is the head of climate change and nature of the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. So please tell us what you're bringing to the table.
Good evening. So I'll take it as a given that we all know that we're in a global crisis that combines climate change, nature, and land as part of the same coin. And I'll also take it as a given that we all know that we have a moral duty to aim high. So I will focus on how the UK attempted to aim high for our presidency of COP26 and how we will continue to aim high in how we give a legacy from that. And I'm going to say three things, three ways we've approached this. The first, in terms of hosting COP26, getting everyone there. We made this the #1 diplomatic priority for the UK. We drew in the whole of our diplomatic network to ensure that we got world leaders around the table. We got 120, I think it was, but we made sure that everyone was in the room. And particularly we had a major focus on youth and on gender. So voices that perhaps aren't heard as much as they should be. We also obviously dealt with the same challenges that we are facing here in Côte d'Ivoire and China, and hopefully not forever, are faced with COVID and other logistical challenges. And part of our legacy will be working with Egypt, working with Côte d'Ivoire. We've already supported Côte d'Ivoire in those challenges and how to host physically a COP. The other thing to say is we really made it a cross-government effort. I think the danger in all that we do is that this is an environmental problem. It's not. It's an economic problem. It's a development problem. And sometimes us that have been in an environment field struggle to get that message across. For the UK, that was very important for us. 2, the negotiations part of the COP. Push it hard. Obviously, as a presidency, you have to take on a neutral and honest broker role. But within that, you play the moral card. You push that. You need to push as far as possible that there is no time to waste on getting the problem solved to get the most ambitious language possible. You can be the judge of whether we did that properly. I hope we had some success. We got the Paris rulebook agreed. We had some good phasing down on fossil fuel language. We had some good language on adaptation finance. We pushed that hard. And we worked, one of the elements is we worked very closely with the secretariats, the Secretariat of UNFCCC, but we will also work closely with the other secretariats, and we have done, in trying to make that integrated approach. And then thirdly, 3, is drive initiatives and delivery that give the biggest impact. And this is why for the UK, it sounds obvious, but this is why for the UK, we put nature and land at the heart of our presidency. You've heard a lot, I think some of you are in the room with our minister earlier, you've heard a lot about some of the detail of that. I won't dwell on it, but we managed to get the Glasgow Leaders' Declaration on Forestry, covering 90% of the world's forest, a commitment to end deforestation by 2030. We got a strong engagement from the private sector through things like the forestry, agriculture and commodity trade activities to ensure that those commodities that drive deforestation are addressed. And we talked earlier, our minister talked earlier about things like the agriculture breakthrough, recognizing in my patch, Sub-Saharan Africa, that agriculture is the main livelihood for most people, but it is also the main driver of environmental degradation. So I'll just close there, but what I want to say as well is from the UK, this is not just a moment, this is not just COP26, hosting COP26, we want to leave a legacy, and this is why we're committed here today to working with all of the Rio Conventions and with all the other presidencies across Egypt, UAE, China, Côte d'Ivoire, in ensuring that that join-up happens. And also, sorry, I should have said the GEF as well. We've been part of really focusing and pushing on integrated programming in the GEF, and delighted to see it come through in GEF 8, even more than before. But we have a commitment to that legacy and hope you'll work with us on that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was such great insight into what happened in Glasgow last year. Really pushing for those negotiations, and your point about inclusion, which has been such a theme of this COP here as well with the Gender Caucus yesterday, youth as well, and focusing on impact, which is a focus of the GEF as well. It just weaves through everything that we've already heard and what's happening here. So thank you for that. We'll now move to India. We have with us Mr. Jigmet Thakpa, the Joint Secretary of the Ministry for Environment, Forests, and Climate Change. Please tell us what's happening in your country.
Is it about my country or the whole presidency that we had?
As you wish.
Yes, I wish. Thank you. This is such a broad topic given to me. I should speak anything I wish. Yes, big thing. It's a big honor for us, for my country, being invited for today's opening session of the Rio Convention Pavilion. India is a very unique country. So, because if you see, our country is only 2.4% of the world. Only 2.4% of the world. And we have the population of 18% of the world. 1.4 billion people. And we have the largest number of cattle in the world. 18% of the world cattle is in India. And we get only 4% of the world water resources. With that condition, you can think that what would be the pressure on the environment, on the land. It is tremendous. And moreover, being a tropical country, we face so much of storm, so much of natural calamities. Every year we find it is, we have one of the largest coastline, 7,500 length of coastline. So we have storm, we have the problem of coastal erosion, we have problem of drought as well as flood. It's a very unique country. We have flood and drought at the same time. And looking at the so looking at the geographical condition, it's a very unique country. I think there would be no parallel to India. We have the tropical rainforest, we have temperate forest, we have thorn forest, we have the one of the driest desert, the Thar desert. We have both hot desert and cold desert. So unique, all kind of ecosystems are there, and therefore we have all the biodiversity. It is one of the richest biodiversity. You could believe that we have all kind of apex predators, the lion, the tiger, the lynx, all kind of leopard, and snow leopard. Nowhere I can guarantee, and we are the one of the 8 mega biodiversity region in the world. So with this all kind of issue, having a huge population, huge environmental problem, India is still struggling to keep up with the commitment that they have made for the climate change, for the biodiversity conservation, as well as for the UNCCD convention. And we, as a country, we have hosted almost all Rio Convention. In 2003, we had hosted the Climate Change Convention. In 2014, we hosted Biodiversity Convention in Hyderabad. And 2019, we hosted UNCCD Convention. And in 2020, we hosted UN Convention on Migratory Species. So that is a country very unique. And moreover, land degradation is very high. Almost 1/3 of the area is degraded. But at the same time, India has gone from scarcity to surplus. Earlier, at the time of independence, our production of food crop was about only 50 million. Now we have crossed 300 million tons of production of the grain. And we are now from an importer, we have become an exporter, net importer, exporter, and among the top exporter of agriculture products. So India is committed on all front, and moreover, during I can share that land degradation, desertification, and drought, like any other country, it was not that very prominent like climate change or biodiversity. So we thought how to take mainstream degradation of land desertification and drought into the framework. So we thought, why not, like if you want to promote sports in your country, the first thing that you can think that if you have Olympic in your country, by default that you will have a good sports infrastructure as well as a spirit of sports in the whole youth and the country. Similarly, we thought, why shouldn't we host UNCCD COP in India? And so 14th session was held in India, and it was a record participation. Total participation of the delegates was 6,000. Total registration was 9,000. We have almost, so that has mainstream by this land issue in almost every forum, every program. And when I can say, we talk about financing is a big issue, but we have found after a lot of deliberation, there's no dearth of fund within the country, especially for land. Land issue, we can, if you effectively use it, we can resolve the issues of land degradation, desertification within an year itself, if you are really committed. But the thing is that it is not mapped, it is not accounted. So we have developed a mechanism under which, through web portal, we can identify each and every intervention of every program on land and monitor it. That is one thing we have did. India has committed for the highest target in Bond Challenge. Earlier it was 21 million hectares. It has been raised during the COP to 26 million hectares. By now, in last 5 years, India has already achieved the 50% of our target. So by 2030, we will exceed the targets and land degradation neutrality projects. At the same time, India has committed to share its knowledge about agriculture, land degradation, desertification through establishment of Center of Excellence for South-South Cooperation, for which the work has already been started, and we could share the experience of the success story that we have. These were the small intervention from our country, and we were very happy to have the support from all the countries around the world in every convention, and especially for UNCCD Secretariat, we had been hand-holding us at every forum. With that few words, I would like to end my this intervention, and I will be happy to answer any of the questions that may have. But just before I end, just one anecdote I would like to make. The world is at a very critical stage, and I'm from a very remote village in the mountains of Himalaya. The Buddha gave one statement. He was trying for getting alignment. Almost whole life he was trying, he was not getting it. At the end, he gave a slogan, do or die. Either you do or you die. So in the process, either if you go by business as usual, you are 100% going to die. So if you want to do it now. It is time now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for ending on those inspiring words. And few countries have such diversity of ecosystems as India, and few countries are also as impacted by global warming as India, as we see at this moment with the heat waves. But it's great to hear how much your country has been working with the Rio Conventions and integrating them to help attack these challenges. And I'm sure there's just so much to be learned. So now we're going to move to Ms. Nala Nubi, who's with us from the UAE, and she's the head of terrestrial biodiversity for the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment.
You didn't ask the question yet.
Tell us, what is the UAE bringing to the table?
Thank you. I will start by saying that we are honored to be here at this very important event. It's a very ideal opportunity to reframe our commitments. So since the inception, the UAE has been dedicated to protect land from desertification. Since the last 5 decades, we have adopted an integrated legislation, frameworks, and launched several programs and initiatives in regards to the land degradations. So one of our important program or initiative is including the restoration of ecosystems for our native trees or plants, such as the mangrove and the gaff. So when it comes to a national level, one of our huge commitments is to the mangrove forest. We commit to protect them by setting an ambitious goal to plant 100 million of mangrove by 2030. Also, on a global level, we are working with a global initiative to scale up the importance of the mangrove, to highlight its role as a nature-based solution to climate change. So meanwhile, to promote sustainable land management method, we have been able to make a great stride to sustainable and climate-smart agriculture solution, such as working on hydroponic and vertical farming to boost local food production while saving our natural resources. So the UAE approach is to addressing environmental and climate issues has always been proactive, and it's a proactive rather than reactive, and we are keen to share our experience with the world. As a host country, we are welcoming everyone, and we're looking forward on hosting the COP28 in 2023 to mobilize global efforts to mitigate the impact of climate change in our land. And we are committed to work together with other countries to halt and reserve the desertification, land degradation, and drought so we can ensure the continuity of our life on Earth.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing about the proactive approaches your country is taking, and also bringing attention to not just lands, but also coastal lands. We also heard from our representative at UNDP about oceans, and it's about weaving all of these ecosystems together and not attacking them just one by one. So we'll move to our last speaker before we move to our closing speaker, which is the Director General of Environment for the European Commission, Ms. Florica Fink-Huijer. I hope I pronounced that right. And welcome. Please tell us about your work for the European Commission and how it weaves into the conventions and the work that's being done here.
Thank you very much, and indeed, pleasure to be here. I can dwell a lot on what we're doing in the European Union or not, but I think this is not so important tonight. Because yes, we are affected as much as any others, and we will. We went up very high on our ambition on climate neutrality before Glasgow, and we came up with proposals like on deforestation. But the most important is that we want to walk the talk inside, because we're really affected, but we also want to accompany our partners to walk the talk as well. And we really see that we are in this together, and as a probably biggest donor, you can really count on us. But that's not so much important, because the European Green Deal, which is now really the policy framework for everything we are doing in all kinds of policy areas, be it climate neutrality, biodiversity, farm to fork, all the rest. The most important for me tonight is something else, because in the beginning we were saying there are 3 conventions, and this one is a beginning in this year, and the interconnecting element in all these 3 conventions is land. But land for me stands for soil, but actually it stands for nature, and for me therefore it includes everything what we also, the sea and coastal areas and everything else. It is about our broken relationship with nature. And if we do not fix that now, we will have a problem, because we will not reach and hold desertification. We will not reach and hold biodiversity loss. And we will certainly not reach climate neutrality. So what does it mean? If we talk about legacy here, it's life and legacy and all of this. It's about also generational justice. It's about what do we leave for the next generations, not just the next one, but perhaps the ones after. And there, all of us, we have a responsibility, because this is the first COP of this year. We have Abidjan, and then we will have the biodiversity one, end of August, beginning of September, and then we have Sharm el-Sheikh. If we do not set here now the ambition high, how can we expect others, then the COPs that follow, to be equally ambitious? And that's probably the message that we have to give from this COP, that we are united, we are all in this together. Might be that we have different ways to address it, perhaps also different means to address it. It's all true. But then we also have to stand together and help each other. But everybody has to chip in a little bit, and others have to then to help others to make bigger strides, bigger walking steps, right? And really you can count on the European Union on that. But I think the message that we have to give is, this is not only about money, this is not only about ambitions and targets and measures and all of this. This is about demonstrating that as a global community we can unite about the global challenges that we all face. And if this is not the message that comes out of Abidjan, we already start to fail on the legacy. So I really want to urge everybody to unite about that message and try to raise the awareness about nature, because this is the thread that goes through all three Rio conventions. You call it land, you cannot call it sea, but it's nature in the end. And that we all, let's say, rally around that. That's the only message I wanted to give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director General. Indeed, that is one of the most powerful things we can do, is to take what we feel here and to take this ambition, this momentum, and somehow carry it forward and put it out into a stronger face towards the world. So thank you for setting that tone already. So we will now move to our closing remarks. We have with us the Deputy Executive Secretary of the UNCCD, Ms. Andrea Metza Murillo, and she's going to give our final remarks and also mark the opening of this fantastic pavilion. So please, welcome to the stage.
Thank you and good evening. And I think we've been hearing the messages that we need to hear for this opening of this pavilion, but also for what we need to hear towards that COP. And it's about integration, it's about understanding that it is development, it's not an environmental issue, it's about understanding that we need to invest, but invest in the right type of model, in the right type of development that we want to achieve, and that it is about transforming our food systems. This is a critical area, that we have the technology, that we need to encourage and continue promoting that we need to address water security, food security, poverty, and everything it's at the end related to the decisions that we make on our lands and the way we treat our soils. And we have been hearing about the importance of this integration, and we really want to, in the name of our executive, our ES, and as you know, the COP has started, so a lot of things are happening right now, and he couldn't come in the last minute, but he really wants to deliver this message, that it is so important to continue working together, and that's the spirit of this pavilion. And that we can work together, because it's the only way to really achieve land degradation neutrality goals, but all the goals that are there, because it's the only way to achieve Paris goals. It's the only way to continue working on the CBD goals. If we don't make this systemic approach, then we will miss the opportunity, and the window is closing, and it is what science is telling us every day. So we really want to thank you all, and in Glasgow, we really put nature in the center of the conversations. So now it's critical to see in the next CBD COP that we see land, that we see all these climate conversations, but also in Egypt that we continue about addressing land as a central part of this conversation, because it's the only way to continue and really guaranteeing that we're going to achieve our goals. And really, thank you all. Thank you to all that are here. I know it's late, and that we are officially having the opening of this pavilion, where we will be having a lot of good experts, ideas. We need to continue hearing each other, innovation, knowledge of exchange of knowledge, and all of these good practices, because we need to accelerate action. It's do or die, right? And thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. We can now enjoy some cocktails and keep the conversation going. Enjoy.